Okay, well, I guess we'll go ahead and get started. First of all, I just want to thank you again for joining us on this wonderful Tuesday morning. Today we're going to be joined by the great Bobby Fossen. He'll be telling us how we can save time with using job presets. We're going to be learning how to repeat reliably with Project Manager job presets. Now, most of you probably know Bobby Fossen. Either you've met him at one of the shows or you've joined us for webinars before, but he knows everything there is to know about Flexi. He's been using it and training on it for years, and so he knows all the tips and tricks. Everything new that we come out with, he masters it. So he's going to go ahead and give you the presentation. It should be about a half hour, 40 minutes, and then we're going to open it up for a Q&A session. So you can just use the little chat window in the bottom left corner there. If you have any questions either about job presets or just any deep lingering questions you've had about Flexi, go ahead and type those into the chat window there, and Bobby will be able to answer those questions for you. And with that, we'll turn it over to Bobby.
Good morning, everybody. Thanks for taking the time again out of your Tuesday morning. We fully understand it's not always easy to break away during the business day, to sit down and try to learn something new within the Flexi software. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and jump in and give you a little bit of detail on how to use job presets within the production manager. So really, the question behind presets is, what are they? Does anybody or everybody already use them, for one? But then what's the real purpose behind them? So really, the purpose behind presets allow you to save job properties based on your profile, your layout window, your finishing tabs, all of these settings that you change most all the time. They allow you to save these as like speed dial on your phone. So you're able to create presets, which then turns around and allows you, as well as your employees, if you have multiple people in your production staff, to basically choose what material or what preset to actually send to. They don't have to worry about, well, what print mode, what resolution, do I need this high quality or standard or whatever. You can set those up already, preset them, and then at that point your employees or staff would be able to just basically choose the appropriate preset for that specific job and send the job over. So what we're going to do is go through and just kind of give you a general rundown of how this works, as well as how to export these presets. And we'll go over that just a little bit in some detail as well. So what we'll do is we'll go ahead, I'm going to jump out of this screen here, and now what we actually have on screen is our Flexi Production Manager. So what we've got right now, as you can see, I have a vinyl cutter and I have a printer already set up in the queue. By default, whenever you set up a device, it's going to go ahead and create a job queue for you. And I will actually show you how to set up multiple queues here in a few minutes as well. Another way of actually using presets in a slightly different manner. So again, I'll give you two different ways of doing this, and that way you can choose which option's best for your environment. So what we're wanting to do is when I go into the Flexi software, if, for example, I'm going to select a job and I'm going to send that over to rip and print. Most of the time, you're just choosing the standard settings, the default profile or preset that comes with it, and you're actually having to go through and choose all of these different options, your margins, all of your profile settings. Do I need to print on which type of material? So you have to choose all of these every single time that you actually choose a job. So ideally, what we're wanting to do is make this as simple as possible. Allow you to go through, set all of these settings, including color settings and everything else, which we'll show you in Production Manager how to get to the other tabs here in a second. But we're just wanting to save you some time and, again, allow you to create jobs or print jobs on a more reliable basis. And the big time saver here is not so much as in going through and clicking all of these options and things like that, which every single click, as I say in workshops, saves you a couple seconds each time. So the less, as we can reduce the number of clicks, we're saving you time. But how many of you actually send a job or an employee actually send a job, but they chose the wrong profile for that specific job? I literally can see everybody's hands now because it happens all the time. So what we're wanting to do is with presets is basically dumb down the system a little bit to make it quicker and more reliable for your staff to actually choose what settings that you want. So what we're going to do is from here, what I like to do is I'm going to hit done here for a second, and we're going to go back into the production manager. So within production manager, you actually have your device, and then you have your job queue. So what I'm going to do is right click on the job queue here and go to default job properties. When I do that, it shows me all of the tabs that are available within the production manager. Now I renamed this preset default just so I didn't, make things any more complicated. But whenever you first install the software, there should be no presets listed here. So you click this drop down, there shouldn't be anything at all. So what we're going to do is just kind of give you a general rundown of how this works. So we're going to go through, check all of our media settings, and again, we're just looking at default job properties. So every time we send a file to the production manager, it's going to take on these job properties. So I'm not worried about material size right now because you're going to probably pull the size of that printer each and every time, which you should. Same thing with position. Most of the time you're going to put it in the bottom right hand corner, bottom left hand, whichever one you have. But then you can also set up number of copies, margins, things like that. But you're going to do that more in the actual rip and print screen, not on the production manager side. So here's where it really comes in. First things first, in the second tab here, this is actually your workflow tab. One thing I recommend everybody to change is after output, change that to hold. Most of the time by default it's set to delete. If you choose it to hold, after that job is finished, it'll actually sit and hold in your job queue. So that's what I would recommend to start with. Next thing is where we're going to go in to change our color correction settings. So this is where we actually tell it what profile, what settings, what resolution, how fast are we printing it, high quality, standard, high speed, because again, you're never going to get the best of both worlds. You're choosing one or the other and going to sacrifice one over the other. So in this case, what I've done is I've set this up for just a generic banner. And again, here's my profile list. And if you do not have profiles, keep in mind you can go to your printer profiles tab here in the cloud window, choose the manufacturer of your printer, choose the model of your machine, and we should have profiles for most every unit out there. There are still some that are fairly new that we may not have, but we are currently working on those. So we're going to choose a profile. This is a generic banner at 300 by 600 DPI. So this one's going to print pretty fast. It's not going to be high quality. So this would probably be your run-of-the-mill banner that's going to be visible from 10, 20, 30 feet away. So keeping that in mind, we're going to go through each of these other settings. If you have a print cut job, for example, you might want to go in on this specific model and set a dry time before the cut. So I can increase or decrease this. This tab or the information in this window will vary depending on which model of machine that you actually installed, because these are specific driver settings for that specific model. So yours may look a little different than mine. But what we're wanting to do is basically set any values that we want to be default every time that job comes in. So if you need to actually set up a media feed of a specific value, you can plug that in here as well. You need to do the dry time before cut, you can increase or decrease that as well. So what you're wanting to do is go through each one of these tabs and set all of these to your everyday print jobs. These are not custom settings that you might want to change within the print cut screen of your Flexi software. This is every job that comes in here. So this should be somewhat generic. One thing I like to choose is in the marks, the labels and marks. I usually, especially while I'm learning the software, playing with it, or working on a new machine, I will choose print labels. And I check all of these boxes. So at the very end of the file, it will print all of the details of this information in 12-point font, whichever font that you choose, at the bottom of your file. It's also really good when you're first setting up presets. Choose this in order to make sure everything is set properly. That way, if you forget which preset it is, you can go back and look and verify, yes, I didn't accidentally overwrite that or something along that lines. Another thing that comes up in default job properties is at the bottom here, print color bands. Some machines you might like to have a color band, a vertical stripe of each color of each print head on the left and right hand side of your print. So you can turn those on and off. So you're going to go through each and every one of these settings and make the changes that you want. So in this case, for example, this is a banner profile. When I go back, I'm choosing the profile for a standard banner. So I may want to choose my finishing tab and set up my grommets. And let's say I just want to do 4 across the bottom at the top and just do 0 vertical. So it's going to print basically a registration mark for each grommet along the top in 4 spots, equidistant from each other, as well as the bottom. So from here, we've got pretty much all of this set up. What I want to do is I want to go up to the preset option here and click on Save As. This is where we're able to actually choose what settings that we want this preset to save. I generally do not check the layout tab. Now, sure, there are plenty of reasons that you may want to. For example, if you're printing on canvas, you want to center that job every single time, then you can choose the center option in your layout window and then check this option here. But for this example, we're going to just leave it off for now. So everything else is pretty much there. And keep in mind, Finisher tab, seeing as I want grommets on this, is also checked as well. So once I have all of the options that I want here checked, or not checked in that case, I can click on OK, and now it's going to ask me to give this preset a specific name. This is where I recommend that you kind of keep this somewhat generic. So a lot of times what I will do is, for example, right now is I'm going to type in banner, and this is for a UCJV, and then I like to add the date. Okay, because you're going to need to make modifications to this periodically. So once we have this here, we know when the last time it was, when it was last modified. So this is standard banner. Let's just say it's a quick banner. So this is going to be a quick print job, low resolution, ready to go. So I'm going to click on OK. Now that job preset is listed up here. So if I hit apply and hit OK here, every time I add a job into this queue, it's going to carry that information. So if I grab my banner file here and I go to rip and print, you can see it automatically chose that preset. Now I can save, I can trash, or I can rename this preset right from here as well. If I have multiple presets, I can choose. If I want to use the default settings that I had earlier, I could simply choose that and it will actually change these profile settings. So we'll go back to quick banner and choose that, and you're pretty much ready to go at that point. So I could rotate my object here, and it looks like we're having a little resolution or screen issue here. There we go. So we would rotate that, resize it, whatever that you want, and go from there. But just keep in mind we actually have that set. Now from here I'm going to choose my send mode to hold in list. Okay, so this is not actually going to send to a printer, seeing as I don't have one actually connected. But I'm going to actually send this job to the production manager by clicking send and then hit done. So now in my production manager, you'll see I have one job sitting here, and there's all of the details on this. So when I open this up, my banner tab should automatically hold all of those settings that I chose within my preset. So here's my grommets, 4 top, 4 bottom, so it actually pops those on there. So presets, pretty simple. It's a matter of just kind of playing around with these, learning some of the details of how to set these up. So you want to go through and make as many changes as you want, or as many presets that you want. For example, I'm going to go back into my default job properties here by right-clicking on the job queue, click default job properties. Now I'm going to make some setting changes. Let's say I want to actually produce something on some sort of a generic vinyl of some sort. This is again 300 by 900 in this case, a general PVC vinyl. I could then click on, say, if that's the only change that I want, I could change profile, change media, change anything there, click on save, save anything or everything I want. I hit OK. Now it's asking me for a name. So this one would be fast, oh, let me type the caps, fast print vinyl, for example. Okay. And again, just my habit, go through and create that, put the date on there as well. So then we're going to hit OK. And then if I don't want that to be the default, I just hit cancel here because that preset's now saved. We'll go ahead and add that to it. So again, if I add a job that is now vinyl cut or vinyl printing, I can select this, click on rip and print, and you'll notice I can choose my fast print vinyl or my banner options here. When I choose those, it carries over those profile settings, the resolution, print speed, as well as anything else that actually came over that I chose to save. Okay. So pretty simple. Again, what I like to say in workshops, it's not rocket science, but this is a huge time saver. And again, we're looking for consistency when you're outputting these jobs. So if you can have an employee, instead of them going in and saying, oh crap, which profile do I need to choose? Well, you already have a preset and you can actually set that ahead of time. So the next question that comes up a lot of times is, if you have multiple production machines within your environment. So you've got one version of Flexi Production Manager driving 2 or 3 machines. You have another one at a different location or within the same building, but it drives different machines, or the same machine, but you have multiples of that. You are able to actually export these profiles or these presets to where you can actually import them into your other operating systems or other computers. So what we're going to do is show you how to basically go through. So again, right click default job properties allows you to make changes and save, as well as trash those presets. But what you can do is, while we were in this job queue, I can go to file and then go into export preset. I'm going to choose the printer that has the presets in it that I want. I'll select fast print vinyl here. I'm going to embed the input profiles. That guarantees that it should match exactly the same settings or same input profile settings. Your rendering intents, your hue settings, everything should bring that directly in. You can also set this as read only. When you set it to read only, no one else can go through and actually edit this. It creates a permanent piece that you cannot edit again. So just make sure everything's right. So once we select that, we're going to click on export, and then we're going to tell it where to save it. I've got mine set up and saved a Flexi 12 preset folder. Now, important point here. Notice this is not in the root directory of my C drive. Okay, this is actually listed on my desktop right now. The reason you want to export these presets is if, for example, you ever need to reinstall the software or uninstall software, which actually should delete the actual installation folder, your hard drive crash, anything like that, you want to be able to grab these presets back. Okay, that again just saves you time and again helps create consistency. Even if you buy a new computer to replace an old one, you'll install Flexi 12, come in here, import presets from the old one that you've saved externally, and you'll be able to go from there. So I'm going to save this in the Flexi 12 presets. Okay, so it should be exported at that point. So now looking at my presets, let me click on it here. You should actually see that I've got a couple of different presets. There's the one that I just created. So then it's a matter of how do I save, or bring that over to another computer, and it's really very straightforward. Once you set up your device, as well as the print queue, you don't have to preload any files, because when you go to File and you import preset, and you're going to go in and choose that location, I can choose one of these and click Open, and at that point it's going to bring in that profile. So it's already telling me that that one exists. Do I want to go ahead and replace it? Sure, we'll do that. But it actually not only brings in the details of that, and we're just basically okaying because it's overriding what I currently have, and you'll notice it's actually showing you different settings here. So all of these settings are being re-input or imported into your new version of the software, including the profile. So even if you don't have any profiles installed in the default job properties, if there's nothing listed here, it will import those directly from that preset that you exported. All right, so you'll be able to actually qualify all of the prints coming out, as well as be able to get predictable results. As long as your your employee is choosing the right preset, that's it. But it's a lot easier for them to choose a preset than it is to actually check every single one of these boxes and make sure everything's set right, and so forth. Once you have it set once, you just let it go from there. So that's just the general thing about presets. There is another way to actually set up what I would consider presets, or a similar type of preset, and some customers choose to do it this way. Most customers actually have only one print queue for each device that's actually installed in the printer or on the production manager. So you can actually set default job properties, tell it exactly which one that you want, and so forth, and go from there. but that's going to load those settings for every job you send into that queue. What if you actually have multiple job queues? So let's set this one up here. So again, this was the default, so it named it automatically, but let's rename it. Let's go to right click and choose Setup Properties. And again, we set up this preset for banner. So I'm going to just type in banner and then leave everything else there and then hit OK. That queue has now changed. So what I can do here is click on this plus sign over on the left-hand side. It's going to create a new job queue. So I'm going to go ahead and hit finish here after I rename it. So let's call this one the fast vinyl. So once we have that, we're going to hit finish. So now I have a second one, and it automatically pulls up the default job properties for you to make the settings that you want. Using presets, it's pretty straightforward. I choose fast print vinyl out of my list. Everything's loaded. I hit apply and I hit OK. So now every time I want to send a job to print, for example, this one here going to the vinyl, we'll select it. We'll go to rip and print. I'm telling it which job queue that I want to go to and what preset that I want to go to. It should pull the default value. So if I want to go into the banner, I would choose here, seeing as we're sending it outside. I don't think I set a default on that one there, but when you choose that, all of your settings now change. This generic banner. So when I send this as hold in list, if I put that back to fast vinyl and I hit send and done, in the production manager, you'll notice if I'm in my banner tab here, it has that one, but here is the vinyl cut decal. So you can actually set up the multiple job queues for each device in order for you to help categorize which jobs go where. So even if you have multiple print jobs going into fast vinyl or banner for that matter, if you have multiples, you could select those and then click on your nest option, nest that job, create your copies, and you'd be able to send and output from there. All right. So that really should give you, several different options for you to actually create job presets, which again are just like speed dial on your phone or shortcuts on your keyboard. However you want to think about it. But to me, it's a very simple way to educate your staff very, very quickly. It's very simple. You have a vinyl job, you choose vinyl, you put it in that fast vinyl setting, and that's it. There's really nothing else that you need to do. If you need to make changes or go back and say, hey, I forgot to make a setting change, let's say, for example, in this one, fast print vinyl, I want to change the knife offset. Let's say I change a blade or I'm using a really, really thick material or something. I might want to set that offset just a little bit. We'll go ahead and click on the save. And we hit OK. And we can give it another name and actually go here, or move it over to there as well if you want to. But once we hit apply and OK, it's going to save it for that default job properties, okay? And you'd be able to go run from there. So if there's anything else that comes up on this, one of the things that I would recommend is within the Flexi software, you'll be able to go through in this knowledge base here. When you click on that option, it's going to bring you into our website, which actually will have all of the settings here for us. So we're going to choose here, so because this is the default for your knowledge base. So if you want more information or you want to go back and recap on this, you can type in presets. Here's how to import it. Here's how to actually create your presets, as well as a listing of all of the different settings and methods of which to create presets. So as you can see, it's pretty straightforward. If you don't use labels or marks, or you use them as needed, you want to make sure you uncheck that, because again, when you apply that to the preset, it's going to add those to every single job you send over, and you would have to manually go back and uncheck that each, or uncheck the labels and marks each time. So again, presets should be somewhat generic, but detailed enough in order to actually get your job done a little bit faster than going through and actually managing all of those settings within the file itself. All right. Well, with that, like I said, this was fairly quick. Very useful tool that most customers should be using and working with. But again, it's one of those that if you don't have time to actually spend and play around or play with this stuff, sometimes you don't know that it's there. So now that you know, take some time, create some presets for you for yourself, and see if it actually does save you some time or save you some efforts. So with that, we'll go ahead and open this up just for some Q&A, and we'll see if we can't answer some questions.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you so much, Bobby. So like you said, we'll do some questions. We'll start out here with Orville. He said, we're new to Flexi. Does the knowledge base have step-by-step to print and cut?
Yes. Essentially, it's not going to be necessarily what I would say step by step. Orville, if I remember correctly, you're one of our resellers. And we'll go over a few other things with you later, but I'll be able to go through and show you some details on that. But for example, let's see, in the software itself or in the knowledge base, you'd be able to go into actually designing how to actually work with files. You'll be able to go through the contour cutting. So for example, if we just type in contour cut, making your first contour cut job. So this knowledge base will actually go through and kind of give you a rundown of how this actually is set up. So it is almost a step-by-step of how to process this. We also have other videos, as you can see, for print and cut on our YouTube page, so as well as direct links within the knowledge base. So hopefully that will help you out. And if you have any questions that I could help with, you're also welcome to contact me, and we'd be more than happy to help out what we can.
Okay, thank you. All right, so if anyone else has any other questions about either project manager and job presets or anything else about Flexi? Well, Bobby, it looks like we do have a lot of people saying thank you for today's webinar and the topic, so it seems to have been received well.
It's my hope that we can save everybody a little bit of time, as well as just make the whole process easier, which again is just going to help your bottom line, but also when you have employee turnover, presets are an easy way to train new staff coming in, as in a step-by-step procedure, as in, hey, if I send you this file, choose this preset, and that's pretty much almost all that you need to worry about. As they learn it, they're going to get a little bit of confidence built up, and then they would be able to go through and make other changes as needed and so forth. But again, presets allow you to organize your jobs a little bit better, as well as the actual multiple job queues, and hopefully you will get your staff trained a little bit faster.
Yeah, not only saving you time, but frustration as well. I don't think there's anything worse than doing a whole print job and having it be the wrong profile.
Yes, there's nothing worse than actually sending a PDF over to your printer and it's printing landscape instead of portrait. So if you could create a preset such as we can within Flexi, you'll avoid that problem. So just take some time to play with this and let us know if you have any questions.
All right, so it looks like we do just have one more question here. Richard just wanted to know what the next webinar topic was going to be. Do you know if we have that?
I actually have it up here. Yes. So this will be on January 22nd. It will be, again, the same time. And this is going to be tips on masking objects. So within this, I'm actually going to show you how to select a section of a bitmap, for example. And I'll just go through something real quick here. But let's just say, for example, I only want to print that area. This is a vector object on top of my bitmap. So I'll be able to select these two, arrange, mask, and now I actually have just that section. But in the next webinar, I'm going to show you how to make it a little bit easier about tracing the exact edge of an image, as well as not only using the magic wand, but also how to do it manually. Sometimes even taking the old school way and doing it manually does work out faster. Even though it does take a little bit more editing time, but you can sometimes get a little bit more accurate. So masking, we'll be going through on several different methods and ways of choosing and creating masks.
Okay, and yes, there will be an email sent out about the next webinar, reminding you about the date and time, and with a sign-up link. And we do want to make sure that these webinars are valuable to you. So if you do have any suggestions of topics you'd like us to cover more in depth, go ahead and either type it in the chat window there or send us an email, and we'll be happy to cover those topics to do what we can to help you out. Doug did have a question about the presets. He said, can you close Flexi and then open it back up and show us how it comes up with the preset that you printed it with?
Let's see, that I printed it with, such as which file, as in the actual job itself? I'm sorry, I'm not quite following the question there.
It's all right. Doug?
So let me just try while while we're waiting on Doug's response, just to see if it makes a difference. If you don't
He said,
delete
I
the
have
job,
a problem with the preset not coming up when I open a file.
when you open a file. Well, again, if you're talking about bringing it into the actual Flexi sign, there are no presets here. Okay, the preset's actually located when you go to the rip and print screen. This should be where you're choosing your presets here, but it's not going to pull that preset or save that preset for that specific job. Okay, so that's going to be what you're running into. Now, what you could do is, if you're doing multiple job or this one job and you're going to repeat it every month or every 6 months or something like that, you would be able to select this job, and you can actually save or save this pre-ripped file, and that will hold the preset with it. That will hold all details with it. But the job presets are specific to Production Manager. They will not be pulled in whenever you're simply opening an already printed or created file. Doug, I hope that answers your question on that. But when you select the job, you'll see it does have the setup here. But once you rip and print it, you can actually then save that job, and it'll save those settings with it as well. So you'd be able to load the job directly in Production Manager.
He says, I understand that. My project manager says none, even though I saved it with a preset.
Your Production Manager has none. Okay. So go into job or default job properties. You're saying up here at the top it is actually set to none. So that very well could be, we might need to check administrative privileges or something along that lines. And Doug, it may be something also that I could do a live session with you and maybe see if we can't pinpoint what's causing that. Because if you're choosing these settings here and you're saving it, that's really no different than saving the file. But again, we're changing default job properties here. This doesn't save with the file. So after you delete this file out of Production Manager, it doesn't care what preset you printed it with last time. You have to choose it or create it within the job defaults here. But I'd be happy to go through and try to help do a remote session with you to make sure that we're not having either some sort of administrative saving issues or something along that lines.
Okay, thanks. All right, well, if anyone else has any other questions, you have the floor. If not, then I think we'll go ahead and wrap up. Oh my goodness, this is the last webinar of the year.
It certainly is, yes. Yep.
Okay, well then, as usual, we will be posting the recording of this on YouTube. So if you want to go back and review it, or you want to send it to any employees or colleagues, we will email you all the link, or you can just check our YouTube page as well. And with that, thank you so much for attending. I hope you all have a great holiday season and a new year, and we will see you in January.
Sounds good. Thank you, everybody.